good place now. You are listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, I'm asking you a question. How are you currently defining your life? You know, oftentimes we don't realize that the way we define our life directly relates to how we live our life, how things happen to us, the way it happens, the good, the bad, and the ugly, depending on how we define it and how we see it. Because it's interesting how our perspective of things does color our life and goes a long way to either promoting us into a good, positive space or taking away from us and putting us into a negative feeling space, directly related to how we are defining the situations, the circumstances, and the people who come into our life. You know, I really think about the way that I define things, and I guess it's been ingrained into my head for so long being a therapist. You know, I don't ever use the word crazy, okay? I don't use the word good or bad, okay? Horrible, I don't use that word. Because you got to be really careful the way that you define things. Because what I've found is there's really not a good or bad. There's really not a black or white. There's kind of variations of gray. And I don't even really think it's gray because it's not that drab. I think it's just something in the middle. And I think that a lot of times we judge our life. We judge the situation, right? And when we judge it a certain way and we color it a certain way, what happens? It comes out the way that we colored it. Okay, so let me give you some examples before I go into the conversation, because I think this is really going to connect with you on a big way. Okay, I've had events. You know, you have to go to a meeting, or you have an event you have to go to, or something, or work retreat. Good example, work retreat. So you have a work retreat that you have to show up to. It's mandatory, right? Some of you are already making snap judgments in your head about how this retreat is going to be horrible. It's the biggest waste of your time ever. You know, and the thoughts go on about, oh gosh, I got to deal with so-and-so at work. Or, oh gosh, I got to see so-and-so. Oh God, this is going to be painful. And the more painful we think it's going to be, I'm here to tell you something. The more painful it will be. Sometimes you get lucky and some amazing stuff happens. Fireworks, you know, Eric Clapton shows up at the work retreat. But pretty much that's not going to happen. And the way we see the situation is going to directly reflect on our experience. Another good example is like when we walk into a room, we're walking into a meeting and we're feeling really good about ourselves and we're feeling like the meeting's going to go well and people are going to understand us and it's going to be a good feeling. Isn't it amazing how for the most part that's exactly how it goes? You have a good meeting. People get along. They understand where you're coming from. You understand them. It's copacetic. You leave feeling pretty good. On the flip-flop, you're heading to the meeting and you're thinking, oh God, nobody's going to get me. They're not going to understand me. I'm going to try to explain this because the other day when I was trying to explain something, nobody seemed to understand what I was trying to say. I must be so difficult to understand. I must not be speaking English. You know, and the last meeting went so bad and God, I mean, like I wanted to hide, you know, it was so bad. And you get there and you're already defeated. You're walking through the door cringing. Like, God, maybe I can pull off a stomach flu or I got an emergency call and I got to leave and go to the hospital right now. I don't know what to do. Oh, this meeting's going to be horrible. And as you know, usually in those situations, the meeting is horrible. Everything that could possibly go wrong goes wrong. You walk out of there and you go, oh, I just hate this job. And it's interesting. I'm not saying that every meeting on the planet is awesome. I'm just saying it's the way we look at it. And I find it very interesting, too, the way we color things and people in our life as well, is that this tree outside could be the most beautiful tree or it could be the most ugly tree. That dress could be the most beautiful dress or the ugliest dress I've ever seen in my life. That person could be the nicest person, the rudest person, the meanest person, the most weird, mysterious person. I don't trust them. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them, and I'm not going to throw my back out. I know. That's how we get. We start defining people and defining things and how you feel about things and how you don't feel about things. And I don't like this and I don't like that, and this is no good and this is never going to work out. Oh, my God. I mean, I've seen some train wrecks in my life, but this is a high-speed train wreck, and I'm sitting on the sidelines with a bag of popcorn and a Pepsi. That's how this stuff happens. So on today's show, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be actually revealing what's really going on, what's happening in the mental faculties, what's going on right up there in the old brain, the cranium. And I'm going to also help you to understand how to let that stuff go. Because you and I both know it. At least I know it. I know it that, you know what? This stuff isn't helping me out. Okay? The negative stuff, the stuff that says that this isn't going to work out, none of that's helping me. That's not adding to my quality of life. That's not making me happy. It's taking away from my quality of life. It's making me sad. It's putting the burden upon me. And it's making me begin to believe that the whole world is out to get me. And you know what? Quite honestly, I know that's not the case. And I've seen the other side. So we're going to talk about that here. But let's begin with the definitions of good and bad. First off, what is good? What does good mean? What does good really stand for? All these things stand for something, right? It's an imagery. What's good, what's bad, what's evil, what's horrible, all those things, and it's interesting, like when I'm in sessions, when I have clients, I see clients all over the world. I offer Skype, FaceTime, I offer phone, I even offer WhatsApp for folks that are outside of the country that want to do phone. But I also offer in-office, meetings where we have sessions right in office as well. But either way, when I'm working with a client, no matter where they are, one of the things that we're dealing with is what's good and bad. And they'll say, well, it was horrible. And I have to find out what other people's definitions of horrible is. Because if I make a decision based on what my horrible is, I'm thinking about catastrophic, the end of the world type stuff, when they could be talking about a little red wine stain on a blouse. And I'm not making light. I'm just saying, you don't know what one person's horrible is, just like you don't know what one person's good is. Okay? We don't know what one person's bad is. And we have to understand how those definitions are important. More importantly than thinking about what everybody else is doing. As a therapist, that's what I have to help, is to figure that out. But for you want to begin to define and figure out how are you defining these things, and then how are you defining your life. Because if things are all good, that's great. That's great. You're looking at things from a different perspective all the time, because it's not always glaringly obvious. But also, though, when we define too much, we end up getting into that situation where we're defining ourselves based on one thing or another. And I've found that a lot of times people can fall into that trap because it's something that, one, they're not accustomed to, two, they don't understand, right? Something new. I mean, when was the last time that something new came around and you're like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't know. That doesn't sound good at all. I'm a little scared of that. I don't even know what to say about that. Okay, I get it, but we're already defining something as not good. We're already defining something as I'm scared. Okay, all of these things are not giving me the warm and fuzzies, right? Not warm and fuzzies at all. And so when you think about it, we're kind of defining ourselves out of living. Think about that. You're defining yourself out of living. I found myself there before, and I think I can give you a really good example that you might actually have been through, understand, and can see in your life. I've been in meetings where people have given me opportunities, and they were not in my trajectory, at least in my mind at that time. And I had to look at it from a different perspective, because at first I'm like, no, this is not, that's not the way I'm going. And then I realized, well, it kind of is the way you're going, and it's an opportunity, so just think about this and just deal with it. and stop defining it as what you think is good or bad. Because once you define something as not being good, or something as not being useful, or something that doesn't pertain to you at all, you shut down. And when you shut down, what good does that do? When you shut down, what good does that do? It doesn't do us any good. And so that's something that we really want to think about in today's show. And I'm going to actually give you some solutions, as always, on Live Your True Life Perspectives, on things you can do right now to change these patterns and to stop defining yourself out of living. If you haven't already, check out the website, Ashley Burgess, Ashley, BERGES.com. Check out the website. The latest shows are all updated on the website. You can listen to them right there without downloading anything. Stay tuned, because Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. We'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
Turn it up and jump in the deep end on Perspectives. Now, here's Ashley.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, I'm asking you, are you defining yourself out of living? Are you defining your life so much, good, bad, horrible, evil, that you have literally defined yourself out of living? You know, I find oftentimes when I'm working with clients will say that something's good, or clients will say something's bad, or clients will say something's horrible, or what have you. And I have to ask for context of how do you define good, bad, horrible, because I don't know. Because if I use my definition of that, it could be something completely different. So you see what I'm saying? It could be something completely different because it depends on the way that someone looks at it. And our definitions are clearly different from person to person. Okay? My thought process of fantastic, amazing is going to be very different from someone else's fantastic, amazing. Okay? And I find that interesting because I find that a lot of us are defining our lives. We're putting ourselves in a little box. And every opportunity that comes our way is either good or bad. And we don't really think about it. And once we've labeled it bad, which is within a few seconds, we cut it out. It's done deal. Even though it could have been the best thing for us. You know, sometimes things that appear to be, quote, bad, end quote, can be the best thing for us. And there's many examples, and I can go on and on and on about these examples. But an example of something being bad for us is that we don't get a pay raise at this job. Or we don't get that job that we wanted, you know? Or we don't get to go on that trip at work that we wanted to do. You know, in the recent show on Live Your True Life Perspectives, a good friend of mine, Reggie Harvey, was talking about how he didn't get a liver transplant. He's on a list for liver transplants, and he just wrote a book called Anatomy of a Patient. Very interesting stuff. You can find it on his website, reggieharvey.com. And it's interesting because he didn't get it. He got called one night about 11 o'clock from the hospital saying that we've located a liver for you. We've located a donor. And they said, go on and get your stuff together and go on and come up here as soon as possible, and we'll see you when you get here. And so he called me. It was about 11-something, and he called me up, and he was so happy. And I got really happy, too. I was like, oh, my gosh, this is so amazing, so amazing. And I was like, let me know what you want me to do. Let me know what you need me to do. This is rock and roll. And the next day, I texted because I didn't think he would be able to talk because he'd be in the hospital. And he texted me back, and he goes, it's a no-go. And so when he was on his way up to the hospital, they had made a mistake. And the liver was not a candidate, was not a match for him. And that was very painful because at the time, that seems very bad, very bad. And I understand that, yes, when you're on a transplant list, you would like to get a transplant. But on the flip-flop of that, they made a mistake, but they made a mistake because they were looking at some old labs that those labs showed that the liver would be an acceptable, viable, donor. But the labs that were done 2 days before that call shows that liver actually would have killed him. And I know that some people might call it a silver lining, but to call it bad, I think that's not proper. And if you look at things that are maybe more simple than that, the fact that, maybe you didn't get that date with somebody, The fact that you didn't get those concert tickets you wanted to. Is it always bad, or is there something else waiting for you? Or is there something better to be doing? When we say things are good, are they always good? I mean, you think about the way that you define things, because I think if you really begin to look into your wheelhouse of how you define things, you'll begin to realize that you're actually taking away from your quality of life. What about when you define something as not being right? It's not right. It's just not right. What's not right about it? What's wrong with it? Think about it. I found that the more I define things as not being good, the more I overlook them. Even things that seem, well, like there's problematic situations in them, you can see it as maybe problematic, but there's got to be something else within it. And I find that when we want to actually make our life a proper life based on looking at things from different perspectives on a constant basis, almost like you're looking at life through like glasses made out of prisms. Like a prism, 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 not prison, prism. When we look through glasses with prisms, not prison, you see like the refraction of the light, right? You see the refraction of different colors, and it's very cool. And actually, it's interesting. My assistant that works on my videos, we do videos every week for YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, and every week, every single week, we put up a video on YouTube, and we have a video that just came out today on actually just yesterday on marriages. On has your marriage become a roommate type situation? Very interesting stuff. And you'll find that on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, look up Ashley Burgess. That's the name of my channel. Ashley, Ashley, Berges. Ashley, Berges. And you'll find my channel, and you can subscribe right there to the channel. Just subscribe. And by subscribing, you're not downloading anything. You're getting an alert saying, hey, there's a new video. And you're only going to get like one of those a week. So it's not going to be crazy. But you're really going to see some really cool content and ways to look at life very differently. Because if we look at life through different angles, we begin to realize that our old definitions of the way it is just holding us back in a prison. Not prism, prison. Right? And that's something that's interestingly powerful. Another thing that I hear clients say is, this is never going to happen. This won't ever happen. Never going to happen. Won't ever happen. Always interesting stuff. Because if I tell myself long enough that something's never going to happen, you think it's really going to happen? And even if it does happen, am I going to see it? Think about that. Because if I can think about that, that's deep. So if I go around saying it's never going to happen, it's never going to happen, and I believe it, even if it happens in front of me, I'm not going to believe my own eyes, and I'm not going to be able to construct that thought because it's never going to happen. It's impossible. And I think that's why this show is so important, is that, it's not about living your best life. It's about living your true life. Okay? It's not the best of what you think is the best. It's not like, so how do we define best? Right? How do you define best? But true. Because the truth overcomes and supersedes best every single day of the year. Because there is a truth that is not held back and imprisoned by good, bad, ugly, evil, horrible. This is never going to work. My life is falling apart. This is not my life. This isn't good for me. Because none of that's real. That's not true. Now, you could be believing that, and that's your best life, right? Because that's the best you can do, because that's what you've been told is the best. Your parents were, telling you about how you could do something, or you're never going to be good at sports, so you better start getting into piano. I mean, son, is that right? Think about some of this stuff, and I'm not saying your parents are bad people, okay? I'm just saying that parents do the best they can for the most part. Some of you grew up in very challenging situations. For the most part, I think most parents tried. But think about some of the stuff that you were brought up believing about yourself. Think about some of that low self-esteem. Think about how that low self-esteem got into the very crevices, the very molecules, the very pores of your life. Is that your best life? So if you didn't have this show and you weren't listening to this show, that self-esteem issue and that stuff that says you're not good enough, is that living your best life? No. I mean, I guess it is the best life if that's all you know. I mean, that's what people are selling, toting around town, your best life. What about your true life? Your true life is the life without the limitations. It's your life without the stuff that's the self-esteem issues. It's your life saying, hey, you know what? I might have been brought up this way, but I can make changes. I can change my perspective. I can change my beliefs. I can change my values. I can define myself based on myself. Whew, powerful stuff. I know, it's very powerful stuff. You hear the first time you hear the truth, and anytime you hear the truth, you can feel it. And that's something that this show is about, is that you can feel the truth. Because this is truth. Not hearsay, not judgment. I'm not over here trying to hold you back or tell you what you can and can't do. I'm saying you could do anything you want to do. But you got to believe it. Right? And you got to know it. And you got to work on that, because otherwise we live with these limiting thought processes, the good, the bad, the right, the wrong. It's never going to happen, and the list goes on. And guess what? We get stuck. We have low self-esteem. We don't find that unconditional love for ourselves. And we have regret and anger and resentment because of it. Stay tuned when I return to be talking more about this, and also about the solutions, things you can do right now to end defining yourself, end putting yourself in a box, and actually allowing yourself to breathe. Stay tuned. Live your true life perspectives. We'll be back this time. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
This is Jake Busey, and you're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, I'm talking about how we define our life, how we're defining ourselves right out of living our life. We're constantly defining ourselves, the good, the bad, the ugly, the horrible, the not right for me, won't ever happen for me, this is never going to happen, won't ever happen. It's not my life. Well, I'm never going to meet the right person. There's no good women out there. There's no good men out there. Well, marriage life, I guess, just isn't for me. I'm going to be alone and single for the rest of my life, no matter if I want to or not. Do you hear those comments? And I'm sure some of you are like, oh, man, she must be like right here in my home listening to me on a daily basis, because this is the stuff that's going through my head. And I understand. I'm not judging you. Not at any point in this show am I judging anybody. I don't have time for that. Why would I want to judge anyway? What does that mean? Right when we start judging people, it means that we're doing something. You know how that is. Or it means that we want to pass the buck, or it means that we decided to go sidelines. I don't do sidelines anymore. Back in the day, I used to gossip. We all did. You know what I'm saying? Shut up. We all did. Yeah, I know. I'm honest on this show. You'd be like, oh, I can't believe what so-and-so did. Can you believe that? Oh, man. That's horrible. That's the worst. And I did it, and I realized that I was just sitting on the sidelines. It's like all of a sudden I was watching a reality show, and I wasn't in it. I was on the phone with somebody, and all of a sudden my life had just like put on hold. I was like, I was on a commercial break, sitting there on a commercial break, wondering what the heck has happened to my life. No, and then when you eventually come to, you're like, I've been gossiping for a freaking hour of my life about them. They might not even think about me, and I'm over there thinking about them for an hour, putting them down, talking about, I can't believe it, or agreeing. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to really focus on my own life. But I want to do it in a proper way. I don't want to be putting myself down. I don't want to be causing myself pain and agony and suffering. And so if I'm over there talking about how my success is never going to happen and how this is never going to happen, that's not going to happen. I mean, this is not building a good case for me. And how many of you are doing it right now? I used to do it. So I used to be really good at putting myself down. I used to be able to be good at finding the faults for myself, and I used to be able to put myself down constantly and really feel insecure and really bring down my self-esteem and do all that stuff, right? And then wonder why things just weren't working out. And that's when, and I think some of you, if you're not even, you don't even have to be a long-term listener, but if you are a long-term listener, you definitely know about this. You could be a fairly moderate listener to Live Your True Life Perspectives and know that I talk about this a lot. Like, I talk about the year that I took off from dating, and I took off a year from sex at the same year. And I really got to know myself. And one of the things that I realized about myself is that, well, I had a lot of negative judgment about myself. I judged everything in my life, good, bad, and different. I would find all the faults in anything that was going on, and I would judge it, and I would think about it, and I would magnify it, and I just all kinds of stuff. And I realized this was not getting me anywhere. Actually, it was holding me back and moving me backwards. And I had to work on it. And so now let's begin to talk about that, because I know some of you out there are saying, hey, I want to be working for this person for the rest of my life. I'm going to be working for the man. I'm going to end up just like my parents, whatever that's like. Okay. I know some of you are like, I'm never going to be like my parents. Never. But you know what? You don't have to be. And you don't have to end up like them. You don't have to be like them, because you got to figure out who you are. But in order to figure out who we are, how to live our true life, not our best life. Remember, our best life is based on limited knowledge base. It's the best we can do. I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can is not that good enough for me. Best I can. I'm living my true life. Okay, living your true life is what we got to do here. So in order to live my true life, I had to let go of the untruths of my life. Because I can't be living true and lying to myself. Isn't that true? I think we both agree on that. You can't live your life truly and be lying to yourself, right? It just doesn't work. We got to stop telling the lies to live the truth. Okay, so we both agree. We agree with that. We're good on this. Okay. The second thing is we got to figure out what the lies are. Okay, what are those exaggerations? What are those lies that are holding us back? And we got to figure out what they are, because a lot of times we don't hear them anymore because they've been around for so long. It's almost like when you walk into a restaurant and the music's playing and you don't really make out the song anymore because you're not really paying attention, and it's really muted, so you don't really hear it. Right? You're not really paying attention. And for most of us, that those negative thoughts that we have just kind of just go on like a soundtrack throughout our life. We're not really paying attention to it. We don't really even know it exists. And we really, I've had some clients who say, hey, I don't have really any of these thoughts in my head. And I know you think that everybody does, and that's, that's part of your repertoire, being this therapist and the way that you practice. But I don't think I have any of that. And I said, you know what? You might be right. Okay, I haven't seen it before ever, but you might be right. You could be that one person. And there's always that one person, you never know. And I said, but do me a favor, the next time that you do something to hurt yourself, to put yourself last, the next time that you talk yourself out of doing something that's good for you, I want you to think about that, and I want you to come in a session and talk about it. And lo and behold, next session, almost like clockwork, clients come in and talk about it. Well, I didn't apply for this job. It was a perfect job in the company I'm already working, and I didn't apply for it. Why didn't you apply for it? Well, because, last 2 jobs I applied for, I didn't get it. And you know what? I just don't want to get hurt again. And I don't want to get let down again. I'm just tired of this. I can't be let down. And then I said, so what happened? Well, the person that I've been training that just started the job got the job because I didn't apply. I had one client come in one time and had been offered to go on an amazing trip, and they're an amazing filmmaker. And they turned down something that was just out of this world, and I couldn't believe it. And I said, why would you turn that down? And he's like, you know what? I couldn't believe I did it. I just felt like it just couldn't be real. And I said, well, maybe it's not. And we walked through all that. And then the next session that we were in, found out that actually somebody that has worked for him in the past took that, and it was an amazing experience for that person. And I could see the hurt and pain in his eyes, because he's like, why would I do something like that to myself? Why would I do that to myself? And I said, well, unfortunately, it's because there's something holding you back inside that's telling you, there's something holding you back. There's something getting in the way of you accepting that. There's something telling you that you're not worthy of that. That's something telling you that you're not going to get it. There's something telling you that, you see what I'm saying? And so a lot of times that's how clients begin to realize about that they are defining their life, defining situations, defining opportunities constantly. And a lot of times that defining is taking them out of living and taking them off course. And so we got to be able to find that stuff, and once we find it, then we got to be able to write it down and see it. Because like anything else in life, let's talk about like a grocery list, for example. You got a grocery list. You're going to go to the grocery. You've been at work all day. It's 7 p.m. You're at the grocery. It's a Thursday. It's a weekday. You're trying to grab stuff to go home and make dinner. And you didn't write anything down. But you had like 8 things. 9 things. You know how many people can remember 9 things? Not many. Not like that. And get them all. Okay, because the food thing is the interesting thing, because when you're prepping food, you need all of it. You can't just have one thing of it and go, oh, well, I forgot the milk. Ooh, yeah, that's not going to work. So isn't it amazing to write things down because we remember it? It's the same thing in our mind. When we have thoughts swirling around, we can't really remember them all because they're all swirling around all at one time. And so we can't really dissect them and think about them. We just have it all swirling around. It's creating that kind of either negative feel or positive, whatever vibe that's creating, usually not helpful vibe. And so we have to write stuff down to be able to figure it out and to be able to work on it. Stay tuned. Our turn to be talking more about solutions and how you can begin right now to stop defining your life, stop putting yourself in a box, and to begin to breathe your truth. Live Your True Life Perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess, will be back in. I'll be back this time in 2 shakes.
You could be my luck.
Get in here. You're listening to Perspectives with Ashley Burgess.
Welcome back live to Live Your True Life Perspectives, and I'm your host, Ashley Burgess. On today's show, I've been asking you, how are you defining your life? How we're defining our life right out of living. We're defining ourselves right out of living our life. And how we have to stop putting ourselves in a box and to begin to breathe our truth. You know, right before the break, I was talking about solution. And how we have to begin to understand how we're defining our life and how to see how it's holding us back. And we have to see that clearly before we can make the changes necessary to stop defining ourselves out of living. Good, bad, not right, won't ever happen. It's not for me. It's not my life. It's never going to work. Marriage is not like for me. I'm never going to meet the right person. Never going to find the right person. I'm not going to have the right job. You know, I'm always going to be like this. I'm going to end up like my parents. All those thoughts. Okay? Yeah, we all have them. And I've had to work really hard and diligently to remove those from my life. And that's what I do for clients, is that's one of the things that I do. I call that cleanup duty. I'm very good at cleanup duty. If you need somebody to do the cleanup duty, you got to do it too. But I'm going to walk with you through it, right? I'm going to be your concierge to the cleanup duty. So you don't have to do it on your own. I'll be there holding your hand every step of the way. That's what you call camaraderie. And so we begin to realize these negative thoughts. We begin to realize these limiting judgments. We begin to realize the defining stuff in our life. And then we write it down because we realize it's swirling around in our head, and we got to actually see what it is. And once we begin to write this stuff down, we realize it's real. This stuff is real. It's not the boogeyman. It's not the ghost under the bed. This stuff is real, 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 real. And this stuff has been defining our life for a very long time. And for the most part, it hasn't been defining our life very good. And so we write down these thoughts, these beliefs, because they're really actually beliefs. They're permanent. They're semi-permanent beliefs that can be erased, but some people, they're permanent. They keep them forever. And to me, some of those beliefs are like the house guests that shouldn't even stay for 5 minutes. Okay, the 5 minutes is too long. You know what I'm talking about. Some of those thoughts are not even worth a 5-minute house guest, much less to hang out in your brain for 50 years. Do you think that's a good idea? To hang out in your brain for 25 years? To hang out in your brain for 10 years? Do you think that's good? Would you let that person stay with that kind of thought process? Would you let that mentality and that mantra stay? No. If that was someone else in your life, you wouldn't be around them if they were saying that to you. Instead, that's in your own head. So you write this stuff down, and then you ask yourself, does any of this serve me anymore? Does any of this serve me anymore? Because if it does, great, but for the most part, it's not. It's getting in your way. It's not going to help you because it's holding you back. So then you begin to look at each one of those statements and find the absurdity in all of it. And as you find the absurdity on it, you begin to challenge these truths. And then these truths that you've been holding on to for a very long time, it's like being given a watch in the will, and you think it's this like real Rolex, right? And you wear that thing around all over town, and that thing's fake. It was bought in China. Somebody paid $14 for it. And you've been wearing that around telling everybody that's a real Rolex. I'm not big into the names. It's not about that. It's about what we take is we take something that's not a real thing. It's a fake. We keep it up in our brain for a long period of time and we hold on to it. It's not real. It's not true. Anything that goes against your higher self, anything that goes against you and your value as far as being a valuable person on this planet is not true. Okay? And yes, some of you are saying, well, that's not true. I've been through this and that, and no, you're valuable. I know that you might not believe it because you've been beaten down so long by other people and yourself. But you've got to begin to see your own value, but you got to remove these negative thoughts. And if you're surrounded by someone who is embedding these thoughts into your head, you really need to think about who you're spending time with. If it's a family member and you're old enough to not be around it, you need to figure out how to deal with it. If it's a spouse, probably start with some marriage counseling and then go from there. I work with clients that are married to someone who is emotionally and mentally abusive. And if that's a situation that you're in, you really need to begin to think about how you're going to deal with this because you can't continue to live that life like that and be healthy. Mental, sound, mind, and body. You can't be healthy, spiritually fit if you're dealing with that. And if you're hearing that enough, that you're not good enough and you're not valuable enough, you're going to start believing that, and you probably already do if you're in that situation. And so you got to figure out for own self-preservation how to deal with that because it might be scary right now to overcome the situation you're in, but I'm telling you, you'd much rather deal with this fear than deal with the regret on the back end. And so what I'm saying on today's show, which I think is valuable, and I think you find it valuable too, is that we're defining ourselves out of living. And we got to stop doing that. Because it's not benefiting us. It's getting in the way of us finding our true life and living that true life. away from other people's defining definitions of who we are, what we're supposed to be, the kind of person we're supposed to act like, how we're supposed to look, all that stuff. It's about how you want to be, who you are. And that, to me, is the valuable message and something to really think about. And so the next time that you think about something and you think about it good, bad, evil, whatever you define it as, stop in that defining right then and ask yourself, is that really true? Does this defining moment, does me defining this, does this serve me in any way? Does this help me? Does this help me with my life in any way, shape, or form, or is this holding me back? And when you find and you hear other people defining stuff, ask you, does this serve you at all? Or is this just getting in the way and cluttering up the message? Because I think if you begin to look at things from a more open mind perspective and begin to clean out the negative thought process and be able to clean out the stuff that's defining your life and holding you back in a negative way, I think you'll begin to be able to embrace life on a better level, on a happier level. And I think you'll really see the fruits of your labor. And you'll be very impressed by the successes you'll have. And you'll be very impressed by the things that you can create in your life. Because you're creating things right now. Let's just take it to the next level. I hope this show has helped you. Please share it with your family and friends and anybody that you care about. Live your true life perspectives with your host, me, Ashley Burgess. I'll be back this time, you know it. I'll be back this time in 3 shakes.